Chairman, I'm glad to get the opportunity and thank the witnesses for being here. I suppose some of the things I have to raise, I suppose I've been raised several times in the Dáil chamber, and I suppose it's sad when I don't see a response coming. I suppose when you talk about vacancy and dereliction and how to deal with it and how to sort it out, I mean, we must look back at how it began or why it happened. To me, anyway, our streetscapes and our townscapes or whatever, they got affected when local authorities and government policy at the time gave planning to multinational supermarket companies to build a big retail estate outside of towns. That took the footfall out of towns and it took away the problem for the customers of parking. When you can hop into drive in practically to the door of any Tesco, any of these Duns or whatever, and park their own, and won't be cut by traffic warden or nothing. You have no problem. And that's why most of our towns and villages have disintegrated. And in relation to the residential side of it then, you see, there's no impetus or no onus or there's no kind of incentive for people with a second house. And I have several times given the example from Kimere Town through Kilgarvan and down within 7 miles of Killarney. There are 55 houses vacant on the side of the road for as long as I can remember now. You could step out of the houses into the bus. There's a bus going both ways every half hour. You couldn't ask for more. Into Killarney, and there's connections to Cork, connections everywhere. The reason the owners won't rent out the houses, there's 2 reasons. One, the laws that are there now and the RTB favour the tenant, and they're afraid they can't get their houses back when they need them. That is paramount, and that needs to be sorted out. The other one is, we have to realise that in those cases you may only get 1,000 or 1,100 euros a month for the houses. These people might have other jobs, the owners, and if they rent them out, they'll pay half of what they get in tax. So they're left with maybe 500 euros to deal with all the bills and to keep the house in order. And that's the God's gospel truth. They don't see that it's worth their while. Now, in other countries, because they're treated as 50% in the 50% tax bracket, in other countries, you have a residential tax of 20%. It's nothing to do with your income tax. We need to adopt something like that. Or what would be way better altogether, what's available to Ukrainians, is you get 600 for your house, tax-free. The government are actually paying it. But I would see nothing wrong at tenants paying it, because they're in a bad way, tenants looking for places to rent. Many of them would be glad to pay the 600 themselves, but the landlord needs to get it tax-free. If they get more for the houses, all right, let them, pay the tax on the extra amount. So I'm only asking, what are your views? Am I mad, or is there sense in what I'm saying, or do we think it should be explored?
Okay, thanks, Deputy. Briefly, if we can.
I don't think you're mad. So there's definitely some sense there, and it's interesting because obviously we have tax on rental income is one issue, but when we look at it in terms of vacant homes, because they're so risky from the outset, the cost profile is so high, and then because the reward at the end is taxed so heavily, that disincentivises people to turning these houses around. So why go through the process of a difficult project that's going to cost a lot, and at the very end your tax extremely high, and you may not see your break-even point for a decade or so. So in terms of this topic that we're discussing today, yes, can we have some sort of tax relief for someone who goes through the process of turning a vacant building into a rental property? And I think that is a good point. There needs to be proper reliefs and incentives at the end of a project to encourage someone to start the project. That would be a good view that we have on it.
And sure, we have to realise if a house is vacant, even a house after 12 months being idle, it's starting, there's a smell, it gets damp and different things happen to it. But at least have the windows open. But vacancy leads to dereliction. And I think we need to start there, Chairman, and I'd be glad of the support to talk to government, because I seem to be getting over with it. I'm at it with the last 2 or 3 years, because I went through all the houses on the Sutton Road. I know each and every one of the people. It's not worth their while for what they would get. And to say, actually, the government are the biggest beneficiaries of rentier property. Well, maybe not the ones that have 20 or 30 houses or whatever, because they're in a lower rate of tax there, and I don't know what they have. They're under corporation tax or whatever rules. But the person with 1 or 2 houses, they're paying tax at 50%. It's not worth their while.
Yes, exactly.
And these are out the country. They're inside in villages like Kilgarvan, Guinea Village, different places, Scotland Lynn. There's houses all over the place. People lived in them, they were happy in them, and I see no reason why it couldn't happen again. But there needs to be a wheeler, and for it to work, the government must realise that they must play their part as well.
Yeah, no, thanks. And any quick reply from
just wondered, did you ask them why don't they sell the properties? I mean, if you said they're empty for years and years.
There can be many reasons why they won't sell it. One would be sentimental value. Or other reasons, like they might be waiting for a son or a daughter to come back. We see so many young people immigrating these days. And I was at a function the other night where 10 of them were going away before Christmas. They won't be here for the Christmas dinner this year. They're going to Australia. And they're holding on to the houses. They would rent them in the meantime. There are different reasons why they're holding on to them. There might be someone belong to them in hospital. They're not waiting to see whether they come back or whatever, or see whether they get an improvement in their story. But there's different reasons.
Okay, we need to move on. Sorry, Jude, briefly.
So just, I suppose, a quick point. What we're calling for here is for people who have emotional attachments to buildings. It must be really hard for them to watch them to decay and not be lived in, and not to have families enjoy them. So what we would like to see is mental health supports for people like that, maybe to help them let go of these homes that then they could go to families to sell them on, but to help them get over that emotional attachment. Not everyone's going to agree with that. In terms of tenants' rights, if someone have a family moving back in, that is a justified reason for an eviction of a tenant's rights under the current law. So that is currently a possibility.
No, that's
Can I just say one last thing?
10 seconds.
All right,
you're pushing your luck.
A vacant property tax to me is not the way to go. That's kind of a stick rather than a carrot approach, and I wouldn't support that any day of the week, and I won't be, because if the house isn't fit to live in and didn't work going after, because it will be very easy to show whoever is after them that the house is not fit to live in on a certain day, and there's no vacant property tax applying to them.
Okay, thanks, Deputy Healy-Rae.